Okay, I want to kick off with your 20s because I barely remember my 20s. I feel like I blacked out. Do you have a good memory of your 20s? You started in New York, yeah?
I was 21 when I graduated from Emerson College, and I moved home for a year. And my dad built me an apartment in the bottom of their house. So I had like my own apartment, but it was still under their thumb. And I worked in advertising, and I would take the Staten Island ferry every day and two subways to get to my job. It was 1983. Yeah, 1983. And so it was really popular to wear your work outfit, but wear stockings and then white anklets and tennis sneakers and then switch into your pumps. And I was like, fuck that. I'm wearing my pumps all the time, the whole time, which I've always, now I'm only in sneakers. But yeah, I was like running in high heels since I was 21 years old. So most of my 20s were really about just finding my initial independence. I moved into the city after about a year at home, and it was my first New York City apartment. And it was really just about like becoming a person. I was under my parents' guidance and very, very strict British parents for years. And it was just about discovering like who I was and what was fun. And it was a wonderful time to be in your 20s. There was no social media. You had no idea if you were winning or losing or passing or failing. You were just living your life. And all of these clubs were opening. And, it was the 80s. It was just magic.
Is there a word that's defined that, like in hindsight, has defined your 20s?
Just fun, free, fun, fun, fun,
Free.
fun, and free. I was so free.
I love that you mentioned social media because you've had this sort of new life happen in the last year or two with social. If you look back at your 20s and there was social media available, do you think it would have been very different for you?
Oh, it would have been awful because I've been able to grow up not thinking that people are thinking about me or saying anything about me or focused on me at all. And so I've lived my life unapologetically without worrying what people think about me because they would have had to physically come up to me and tell me. And nobody did that. So there was such a freedom to growing up in the 80s and 70s and 80s and 60s that I feel badly for people that, it's that comparison is the death of joy. Like you just,
Mhm.
all you do is look at what everybody else is doing. I didn't know what people were doing. I was getting a summer house in the Hamptons with my friends, and I was going out every single night, and I was working crazy jobs, and I was, living in New York City. I was living, fucking Carrie, what's her name?
Bradshaw.
I was Carrie Bradshaw, just like wearing Betsy Johnson and going to clubs and drinking and making out with boys in bars. And it was just amazing.
I love that you say Carrie Bradshaw because when I was reading about it, that's the first name that came to my mind. But I know you kind of hate that show.
I hate And Just Like That. I hate it so much. And the truth is, I went back and watched Sex and the City a few times, and the truth is it veered off of what was so wonderful about it, which was women, growing up and coming into their own. And yes, it was about sex, but it was about not the physical act of sex. It was about your sexuality and finding who you loved and dating and being in the workplace. And it was about so much more than just getting laid. And the new show is so like, yes, older women are still having sex, like whatever. No one cares about it. Nobody over 50 gives a shit about sex. Maybe like 1 out of 20.
Really?
I don't think so.
So wait, I'm gonna save that till the 50s
Yeah,
decade, but I
no
actually had a
problem.
question about that. Okay, so
I
'cause
was having a lot of sex in my 20s, for sure.
I didn't know your parents were strict, and it's
Oh,
making me
yeah.
laugh because you're such a wild child.
Oh, yeah.
What
They
was
were
your self
British and both British and did not understand Americans at all.
what was your self-esteem like in your 20s?
I think I liked myself. I don't really remember, but I think I thought I was pretty cool and fun to be around. I don't think I thought that I could get any guy I wanted. I definitely did not feel confident about men,
Mm.
which,
In your book, you say that you're not good at relationships.
yeah, no.
But do you feel like knowing what you know now, any of those 20-year-old relationships would have been different?
Well, I would probably, so many of them were forged in alcohol. So that was a problem. And I would not put up with any of the shit that I put up with
Yeah.
back in my 20s. Like, no way would I have done that. But, we're taught that you're supposed to get married and you're supposed to have kids. And so you put up with so much fucking bullshit just because you think a guy's cute. And I mean, I would love to go back and repeat some of those motherfuckers, as I said, and punch them all in the face. Sorry, I curse a lot sometimes.
No, but I feel the anger because I actually, when I think back on my 21-year-old self and how I dealt with men, I get angry too. Like, I can't believe that
Yeah.
I allowed certain things. I get
Oh
the,
my God. Yeah. I mean, there's one guy I just would like to I would literally run him down with my car and going to jail for murder. Just, I think the judge would let me off if I told him what he did. But yeah, the disrespect and, in general, the disrespect for women, just growing up in the workforce in the 80s was just a shit show, and I was pretty tough. So most people did not mess with me, but it was a lot. It really was a lot.
did you have women at work that were supportive of you, or what was that?
No, they were worse. I mean, I've had some of the worst female bosses, man. I mean, notorious, legendary, hideous women. And I was like, just fucking, catnip to them. Like, ooh, let me take down this chick that thinks she's tough.
They
It was
want to
awful.
break you.
Oh yeah, I've felt that from men and women, though. If you're a strong, confident person, people want to break you down because it makes them feel less confident in themselves. It's always like I always say, if someone's telling you something they don't like about you, just hold a mirror up to them so that they're actually speaking to their correct person, which is themselves. Like, I just bring out a lot of things in other people that they're afraid of, which is hilarious because it's not like I'm walking around going, I'm amazing. Be like me. Like, I definitely don't feel that way, I'm winging it like everybody else.
Yeah, but you have this like strength, or I don't know what the word is, but you are forcefully yourself. And I think people like I talked to a rabbi and he said that on people's deathbed, their biggest regret is they didn't live their authentic life. They lived for their parents or for somebody else. And you really live for you.
I do. And I think that's what I preach the most. And I think the thing that's made it easier for me is, people say that I am unapologetic about how I live, but I think I'm shameless about how I live. Like, I refuse to have shame for being different, for not doing what everyone else tells you that you're supposed to do, get married, have kids. I think there's so much joy in all the shit that I went through because I came out the other side, And I think I always say that the most important thing to me is to leave here better than I came. And I definitely think I will.
Were there moments, or are there still moments where you find yourself tending towards the norm in any way? Like, do you feel that pressure still?
No, nobody cares about you once you hit 50. They're like, she's done. Stick a fork in her. She's done.
Do you really feel that way?
You don't need to pay attention to her anymore. It's not how I feel. It's how it is. It's 100% how it is in this country, in this world. Women are dead after 50. They become invisible. They are told that they are worthless because, you are only judged or valued for your sexuality and you're no longer considered sexual after 50. And women have to fight their way through a decade of feeling invisible and undervalued. Like, it hits you at 50 like a light switch. It's weird. And then, you get to 60 and you have no fucks left to give. And you're finally like the person you were meant to be all along.
I'm screwing up my outline for this interview because You're you're so interesting.
We can
But
go backwards. We can
well,
go back.
to just take it back to your 20s
Yeah.
for a second,
Yeah.
what is the one thing that you wish that Heidi in her 20s knew?
Confidence. Just full, like that everything's going to be okay if you just be you.
Just be you. Okay.
Yeah. Live your life.
Okay. So in your 30s, wait,
And
actually,
moisturize. I didn't moisturize enough.
any specific moisturizer that we should be using?
Just moisturize your body. I took care of my face, but not my body, and my skin's so dry still. Yeah. I don't know. I got a lot of moisturizer tips, but yeah.
What's the one word that would define your 30s?
Drunk, sadly.
Oh, Heidi, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was the decade that I got very, very, very drunk and buried all of the things that I think I didn't know about my childhood, or didn't, I guess I knew, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so I got, I was a very functioning drunk. But I always say I was too busy being drunk to get married or have like a real relationship, because I was burying everything in booze. And it started out as fun. But by the end of my 30s, when I had moved to Los Angeles at 36, it was a disaster. And it was a disaster for 4 years before I finally quit, just 6 months before my 40th birthday. I was supporting myself my whole life. And so I was a very functioning drunk. I would go to work, and work was everything to me because it was my passion. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to go clock in at the soda shop. It was writing and creating and producing. And at the time when I was here, I was at Access Hollywood. And I was the head writer. And I got up one morning, we had to be in at like 6 a.m. And I got up one morning at 5:30 and I decided to have a drink, and I got drunk, and I was like, fuck, I can't go to work. I can't go to work drunk. Although I probably had many times before, like had a level of hangover that was close to being drunk, but it terrified me. And let me tell you, there were plenty of moments before that should have been the bottom, like getting pulled over by the cops, having the cops show up at my house when I disappeared one night, getting thrown off an airplane. Like there were many things that should have made me quit, and I didn't. And so I realized, like, well, now my job is in jeopardy and I'm fucked. If I lose my job, that's it. I lose my home. I lose everything. And so it was a Thursday. I continued to get drunk. I called every person that I was close to and cared about, including my parents, who I knew would not like this news, and my sisters. And I said, I am an alcoholic. I need to quit drinking. And I just hope that you'll support me. And I got drunk through that weekend. And that Monday morning, I started my journey into sobriety. I think I went to one AA meeting. And it was not for me. And so I just white knuckled it. And it's been 23 years.
Whoa.
It'll be 24 years in June.
I've never heard that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I just did not like AA. It was all like, hand this over to God. And the thing about being an alcoholic for me was I felt like everyone was so ashamed of their alcoholism, like keep it quiet, don't tell anyone, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was like, I want to tell everybody, it's not my fault I became an alcoholic. I didn't molest me when I was a kid. I didn't rape me when I was drunk at 36, blackout drunk in my apartment. Like I wasn't the person who didn't nurture me as a child. Like it's not my fault. So I handed the shame back to the people that deserved it. And I went about getting my life together for me so that I could live my life sober and solve my problems rather than bury them in Chardonnay. And I was like, if God has time for my Chardonnay problem, we've got bigger problems, like, and people in AA were giving these speeches. And I just thought, guys, just pull yourself together. Just stop fucking drinking. And So it makes it, I'm a little tough on people who drink because, because of this and because of that. And everyone has a lot of excuses. Just quit drinking.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Or at least I often hear from people who struggle with addiction that it gets really lonely. Was that true for you at all? Because it sounds like you got sober without a community around you.
Yeah, I didn't let it take me out. I went out every night and I drank mocktails and I drank, they tell you not to drink non-alcoholic beer. Why? I don't know. It didn't make me drunk. So I drank non-alcoholic beer, or I had somebody make me a mocktail. And then when it got to the point in the night where people were getting wasted, I left. I went home.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been moments throughout the years, I think, when like I worked on Baby Daddy on a set where I had a lot of FOMO. But the truth is, nothing good happens after midnight, and nothing good happens when you are just so drunk you can't even remember your name. And I think people are afraid that they won't be themselves without booze. And the truth is, you're not yourself with booze. You've just developed this new personality, and you'll get back to who your real personality is without booze and be fun, and all of your problems disappear because you actually face them and deal with them when you're sober, and you can drive yourself anywhere. And I became so much more curious about life when I got sober.
Say more about that. What do you mean?
I think one of the things that has kept me young is that I'm so curious about life. Like I see something on the internet, I'm like, oh, I want to try that. Oh, I want to go do that. Oh, I want to go eat there. Oh, what's that about? And when you're drunk, you're going out with your friends, getting hammered and going home. You're not curious about anything in life except what's in your drink and what boy can you make out with. And there's a lot more to life than that. And I think being a curious person is just the best thing that you can be. And it's okay to do things alone. You can go on vacations alone, you can go to the movies alone, you can go to dinner alone. I think take the stigma off of that and become your own best company. And I think that happened sober. So that aloneness made me sort of date myself. So I didn't look at it as lonely. I looked at it as I have a whole new person to hang out with, me.
I really like that. Because everybody on the internet is obsessed with how you dress. It's such a part of who you are. Did you have that style in your 30s?
I don't think I think I always loved fashion for sure, but I don't think I started thinking about style until I was 40, until I really soaked into Sex and the City and I started watching Jenna Lyons, who had taken over at Banana Republic. And I still learn every day from other people on the internet. It's all about, I realized it wasn't about the clothes so much as the confidence and, making sure that you are wearing your clothes and your clothes aren't wearing you.
Yeah. I because I grew up in the Midwest with like parents who were like things don't matter. I never really thought about style. And then when I moved to LA, I had to learn because of my job.
Yeah.
And recently I met a Vogue writer, Rachel Besser, who put it in a way that I finally felt comfortable with. And she was like, when you walk into a room, you're telling people about yourself. You're saying something with your clothing, with your sunglasses, whatever it is, the way that you would with your words or your warmth.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what you do. Like so much of your personality is, to me, like I get to know you a little bit, and so much of that is conveyed in your belts and your cool skirts and your socks and all the things that you mix and match.
I feel that way about my tattoos also. I think that's why I got, full sleeves basically starting at 50 years old, because I wanted them to speak for me when I went somewhere. I wanted them to say, like, she's cool, she's okay.
Yeah.
Even though she's older, she's cool. You can hang out with her, because you do become so invisible at 50. I wanted to do something that made me stand out a little bit more. I didn't start them till I was 50. So I
What
think
was
that's
your
probably,
first tattoo?
My first was tarot card temperance on my arm because it used to come up in my readings all the time with my psychic. And she was like, "This is your spirit, temperance, temperance." And I didn't know what that meant, but it means to abstain from alcohol, which is insane. And so I had temperance tattooed, the whole tarot tattooed on my arm, and it was huge. And I was like, "Oh shit. Wow. Okay. Well, I've done it now." And then I just kept adding to it. I added a lot. It's the one tattoo I don't love that much because it's very rudimentary, even though it's exactly what I asked for. But and now I sort of surround myself with flowers and butterflies and birds, and I just, so that I can just hug myself in a garden, my own garden.
I love that, Heidi. We skipped over or skipped forward a little bit, but to finish out your 30s,
Yeah.
it's something that you wish Heidi in her 30s knew.
Stop drinking. It's not, drunk is dumb. It's poison. It is poison. Get high on life.
I like that.
Yeah.
There's this Jane Fonda quote that you brought up on your Instagram. She said, life is separated age-wise into 3 acts. In the third act, you go back to your first act, your girlhood, and you become all the things you were supposed to be because at the time you never really knew who you were because you were too busy trying to be who other people wanted you to be. I want to know, with what you know now, what would you not waste your time on in your 40s?
In my 40s, God. I mean, I guess it would have to be worrying about what other people think about you because,
That's interesting that you had none of that in your 20s, but you felt it in your 40s.
yeah, when did social media start?
Oh,
I don't know. Did
interesting.
it start then? Facebook and all that?
Probably.
The reason I think I thought about that then is because I was newly sober and I was just a giant raw open wound that I always likened to like I was dancing on the head of a pin at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And so you constantly thought about what people were thinking about you because, oh God, they all know that I was a drunk because I'm sober now and they're all talking about me. And so I think I thought more, I was just more aware because I wasn't drunk. And so I was more aware of people and opinions and things that were happening. And so yeah, so I think I mean, that's a life thing too, but I really thought about it more for sure in my 40s than I did in my 30s.
Did you enjoy your 40s?
They were rough because I was just discovering who I was for the first time in 20 years. I always had good jobs. I didn't have to worry about that and places to live and made good money and had good friends. But I just think I don't know that I was like checked into anything in particular. I was just sort of going with the flow.
When you say checked in, do you mean the way I take it at least was I felt like at like 28 and then at 30 I was like asleep and I kind of had this awakening that I had been sleepwalking a little bit through life. Is that what you mean by?
I don't know. I think I just mean like checking into the concept of living, and it was so free and easy in my 20s and 30s. And now I was just much more aware of things like, oh shit, I didn't have kids. Should I do that? Do I need to do that? And I went to a gynecologist and found out like how difficult it was going to be. And I was like, okay, fuck it. I guess I'm not having kids. And then coming to grips with that, the idea that I was never going to be a parent and just checking into all the life markers that you're supposed to hit that I didn't hit. And that people still reminded you like, oh, you're single. I can't believe you never got married. You're so pretty. Like that's the reason why you don't get married. So I was still I hadn't hit 50 yet. So I was still like savable. I still could have led a real life according to society. And so I think I was just more checked into the societal rules and markers that I was not hitting as far as marriage, kids, buying a home and all that sort of stuff.
Did the kid stuff hurt?
No, not at all.
Because you said like you had to come to grips. What does that mean?
I mean, I just, so I went to the gynecologist and she said, okay, well, if you want to get pregnant, you're 40, it's geriatric now. So here's it's not going to be easy. And you're going to have to do this and take this and go here and shoot this. And I was like, I don't want to do any of that. And it was a very quick, easy decision. Like, okay, I guess I'm not going to have kids. I'm okay with that.
Do you have any romantic relationships in your 40s that you felt were like something that?
No. So sadly, they tell you that when you get sober, you should not have a relationship for a year.
Okay.
And I made the mistake of getting involved with a big fat liar about 6 months into my sobriety. And it wrecked me. It just absolutely wrecked me and just reminded me that I was not strong enough for heartbreak again. And it was a big mistake. And I haven't had a relationship since, to be honest with you. It's been 20 some odd years. And I just realized that I just needed to have a relationship with somebody who cared about me. And that was me.
Do you mind? Can I ask more about that?
Anything you want?
What about that one wrecked you? Like, was it that you gave it, you really gave of yourself to him and you trusted him, or what about it?
So it was somebody that I was working with, and he was moving to LA, and he was enamored with me, and he was, my girlfriend. I have a girlfriend and she was supposed to move here with me, but I am so madly in love with you and I can't wait to start a life with you. He love bombed me to have sex. And it was probably one of the only times in my life that I can remember that I had sober sex. Mm-hmm. And it was a completely different type of sex than any sex I had ever had before. Right after that happened, he said, my girlfriend's actually moving here and we're moving in together. It was just a lie to get me. And I just couldn't believe, I didn't know what love bombing was at the time. And it just made me not trust anybody, including myself. And I was just like, I'm just going to take a little break. I'm going to take that year that they say you should take. I mean, I'm so grateful it did not ruin my sobriety. It should have. And I still hate him the most out of anybody. And like, I have friends that work with him still. And he's famous and on TV, and it drives me crazy because he just really could have ruined me. And, 1 year turned into 2, turned into 3, turned into, not that interested.
Yeah.
And I don't talk about that a lot because I think people think, like, if you haven't had sex in a certain amount of time, people think there's something wrong with you. And how can you actually live your life and be out there walking around on 2 feet? And, oh, no wonder why you're so angry because you need to get laid and all of this.
Oh, God.
That's a very popular expression from my 40s.
That's so mean. That's a
very popular. Thing. And I always say, like, your penis is not the hug that I need. Trust and believe. That was it. So
I had a big fat liar too.
I've had a lot, but that one was first one sober.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, weren't you engaged?
No.
Oh, you were living in Chicago with someone though, right? When I met you?
No, I lived in, I met you when I lived here in LA, and then I moved to Chicago for a morning show gig. And when I moved back, I moved in with a guy.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And he was a big fat liar. And it wrecked me. I still, like, I'm so over it. I actually am at the point where I wish him well. But when I think about it, I have like this physical reaction in my chest. It just, when somebody makes you not trust yourself, it hurts so badly.
Yeah. I mean, I've had that experience many times because of the person that I am. I think I am, I've said it in one of my stories, like, I'm such a narcissist magnet because And I'm sure you're the same way. It's like, a narcissist sees a tough girl and they're like, ooh, that's a challenge. I'm going to take that one down.
Is that what? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. They love a challenge.
Interesting. They want to break you?
Oh, yeah. They love it. I've had that happen so many times. Oh, my God. And I don't know how I didn't fucking learn.
Do you recognize it now?
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the good part, right? Like you see it right away now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's so hard for me to date now because you have to be a goddamn saint. I'm not, but you have to be.
Wait, did we pick a word for our 40s? I forgot.
I think terrified, honestly. I
Oh.
was just so raw. I would say raw, just trying to figure it all out.
So, coming into your 50s, this is where I get really excited to talk about your life. Is there a word that you think defined your 50s?
One word. I guess maybe it would be like reborn.
Yeah, I like that one.
Because it was yes, you become invisible, but in the invisibility, there's so much power. When you realize that people aren't paying attention to you anymore, you are just 100% free to be yourself. And I think the 50s is when I started giving less fucks about what people thought about me. I mean, everyone thought like, oh, you don't care what people think about you. But I mean, of course you do. Like they tell you constantly. So not only was I feeling more powerful, but I got my dream job as a scripted writer. And so everything was just exactly where I wanted it to be. I owned a home. I bought my first house. I was becoming just like who I wanted to be. I felt really free about being who I was. I was working this magical job. It was just a really great time. And, I think the hard part about being 50 for a lot of women is dating. And so I was so grateful that I did not care one iota about men. I never really have cared about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
They just pulled me in. They all found me, sucked me into it when I was younger. But I was never someone who judged themselves on whether or not I had a boyfriend. I didn't, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it was just such a great rebirth of who I was. I was 10 years sober. It was great.
I want to talk about the magical job, but I think for people to appreciate the magical job, we have to go back to the non-magical ones a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you write all about toxic workplace culture in your book. And that's actually how I got introduced. When we met, then I went home and read your pink cover and your book. I ordered it on Amazon and I was like, holy shit, I gotta know her.
Oh my God. Yeah, I was. And actually, I turned 50 and I took a bunch of friends to London and Rome, and my most toxic boss crashed the trip. And she's one of the chapters in my book. And she was the tail end of the toxic workplace for me. Yeah, I worked with just insane people, and television back then, tabloid TV and news and entertainment news was so toxic. Like nobody would get away with what they got away with. And in my book, I write about that last boss, and the head of the network read that chapter and said, is she really like this? We need to get rid of her immediately. And they fired her finally.
And that's how it happened?
Yeah, she's still trying to sue me, probably. She hates me, but whatever. Yeah. And that was, I think, that's the one thing I really regret about that time in my life is that, and I spoke up to these women. I did, but I wish I fought harder to take them out,
It's so hard at work because in large corporations, like I don't even know how you take someone out. Like there's so many like legal steps with HR and all that nonsense.
Well, I went to HR after this last boss. We were at the royal wedding in London, and she was so abusive to the first royal wedding. And she was so abusive to me that I called HR from London and said, I am literally with like an abusive boyfriend who won't let me break up with them. And I need out and you need to get me out. And I am not going back to that job when we get back. And I'm never showing up again. And they helped me get out, but they knew that she was a problem. They were like, yeah, we know she's got this, but they didn't care because she made money for them.
You write in your book, every day at work was an adventure in insanity. This boss actually loved to scream and yell at people, and the bigger the crowd that was watching, the better.
Yeah, she fed off the energy of just hate and anger. She was crazy. I think she was a drug addict, and I think that she was always on like some kind of Vicodin or painkillers, and they call them gorilla biscuits because when you're not on them, you act like a fucking gorilla, and that was her.
So how do you
fictional, of course,
fictional,
yeah.
How do you make this pivot into screenwriting? Because you start working for Baby Daddy, you say in so many interviews that this was your dream job.
Yeah.
It was.
I mean, I always wanted to be a scripted writer.
But like non-scripted, unscripted, it's so like it's very hard to make that leap. Very few people,
it's impossible.
Women do it.
It's impossible. And, people ask me all the time, how can they do what I did? And you can't, because it was such a unique situation. While I was at Entertainment Tonight, I had been writing scripts for 10 years on my own. I had no schooling, or I didn't know what I was doing. And I had been writing for 10 years, and I had a best friend, and we would pass scripts back and forth to each other. And when I was at Entertainment Tonight, he was coming in to pitch something at Paramount, which was on the same lot. And I had written a script called Psycho about a couple, Sydney and Colin. And the first half was all female and the second half was all male. And you would answer one question. They would act out like how men and women see things, one statement, how they hear it totally differently. And I think the first episode was like, do you want to come back to my place? And girls think, do you want to come back to my place? And boys think, do you want to have sex? So, so he pitched it. He pitched his 3 ideas, 2 of his and mine, and mine was the one that they bought. And so we went to the CW and we cast it, and we cast Nick Lachey. They made us cast Nick Lachey, who I love. And Lindsay Sloan, and we shot it on the Paramount lot, and I never left Entertainment Tonight. And I would run back and forth between running ET and running this show. And the night before the upfronts, Les Moonves decided that Nick Lachey was not a star, and they didn't pick up the show. And so I never left Entertainment Tonight. And then when things hit the fan at Entertainment Tonight, I went back to Extra with another boss I had problems with, but we made up. And while I was there, the guy Dan, who I had done my first show with, sold Baby Daddy and asked me to come work on it.
Wow.
So that shit doesn't happen.
Well, did this change your financial security in any way?
Oh my God, I made a fortune. I went from making, $10,000 a week, which was great salary, to, well, actually at Extra, I was making $5,000 a week. I stepped down from I gave up a giant salary at ET, $500,000 a year, which I saved none of because I lived in an $11,000 a month home. Crazy person. I went from $5,000 a week to $26,000 a week. And that was the low salary for a writer. You don't get those anymore either. Thank you, Writers Guild. But yeah, I made a ton of money, and I was so happy, and it was such a great job. And I met people that are still like my closest friends and family, because we worked together for 100 episodes, and it was just the greatest job ever. I loved it so much.
I noticed that during this time of your life, you had all these intergenerational relationships. Like you truly have girlfriends in every decade, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
I still do.
Do you have friends that are older than you?
A couple, yeah. A couple. And only more recently, and only because I feel confident being around women that I thought were so much more powerful than me, that would look at me like, oh, because I was always kind of like the black sheep. You're too loud. Don't say that in front of people, kind of a person. And women would look at me that way. I get judged a lot by women my age because, I don't blame them. We grew up differently. We grew up not supposed to be like I am, but more, demure and quiet and, so I think now I have more friends that are older than me because I feel confident enough to share my true self with them.
I feel like this was a pretty happy decade for you, but is there anything that you wish you could tell 50-year-old Heidi?
Yeah, stop worrying about your weight. Stop looking at the scale. Stop dieting. Jesus Christ. That took a long time.
That's a big one.
Yeah. I mean, that took till 60 something to throw my scale out. But I spent a lot of time in my 50s, like not wearing shorts because I hate my legs, not wearing bathing suits because I'm fat, getting my boobs cut off because they're too big, which I'm grateful for that one. But just worrying about what I looked like, what I ate, and just stupid.
What's a word that defines your 60s so far?
Fucking joy.
Really?
Just joy. The 60s are I could cry. I will cry.
I'm so happy that you feel that way. You
I
really earned it, Heidi.
I try to show that to people because it's like a switch went off when I turned 60 and I just completely accept myself, my flaws, my failures, my successes. Like I just get it now. And to be able to go through life just getting it is just such a blessing. Like, is it perfect? God, no. But I'm just so much happier. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I left LA and left a job that made me miserable. But right now, this time in my life, I can tell you, I am just so happy.
Can we drill into why? Like what switched? Because you had a moment after baby daddy ended. I could tell you were frustrated and not feeling that kind of joy. What happened?
I think I just realized, like, yeah, listen, I'm still trying to sell scripts about women in their 50s, and I've been doing that since I was 50. I think I just sort of realized, like, what if Baby Daddy is it? What if that's the only show I get to write? Well, I should be proud of that because a lot of people don't get that opportunity. Um, and I just sort of took the pressure off of all the things that people tell you you're supposed to feel and just really got more present in life.
Mm-hmm.
And really just leaned into the small things in life. Like I love that I'm surrounded by trees and nature, and I'm so blessed that my friends gave me this opportunity to move into their guest house and just get out of LA and get out of a job that I really did not like. And
Now your tattoos match your surroundings.
yeah, totally. And I just am so grateful to get to know who I am. That's what makes me cry. Like people don't get that opportunity to just get to know who they are and be happy with who they are. And I feel so blessed on this social media journey that I'm on because I get the most remarkable messages from people. And I feel like it's so rewarding what I'm doing. Just being me has become so rewarding to other people. Like, who gets that?
Well, one of the things that I see happen on your Instagram, and for people listening who don't know, I'll probably put it in the intro, but towards the end of COVID, you started posting like, let's get dressed, right? And
Yeah.
you're a beautiful writer. So you would share these life lessons while you would get dressed. And I see all these young women in their 20s and 30s on your page. I think that's like probably, is that your main audience?
90% is under 35.
What do you think you're giving them? Because they're coming by the droves.
What they tell me is that I've made them less afraid to get old, and that I feel like a safe space for them. And that is a remarkable gift, because my goal was to change the way the world looks at women over 50. And I think I do that every day. And to be able to give girls, because I didn't have that, to be able to give young women a reason to live their lives, to not feel judged by what society tells them they're supposed to do, to just get out there and just be present in their own life and not beat themselves up, is just a fucking joy bomb for me, to know that I'm actually doing some good with the crazy life that I led.
So I want to go into your 60s a little bit. I saw you write that you're terrified on a daily basis and that you're actually a massive failure at life. And I was so surprised by that. And I'm still surprised, especially after our conversation, because you talk about self-acceptance in such a resonant way. Have you redefined what success and failure, I hate that word failure, but what success or pivoting looks like for you?
I mean, it's, the stuff that terrifies me on a daily basis is almost always the same thing. And it's usually it's the one thing that I said that I have been a failure at, which is financial, because I'm trying to monetize this social media world that I live in. And I refuse to promote Amazon stretch pants. And so it's more difficult to get brand deals when you are screaming at the world. So I am terrified about that normally. And I also, it's not a terrified on a daily basis could mean, for 5 seconds, like no one's perfect. No one's life is perfectly happy all the time. And if it was, you wouldn't even know what happiness was if you were happy and joyful all the time. But I'm terrified of things like that, again, not leaving better than I came, of, fucking up a relationship here or there, of not giving people the right message, of saying the wrong thing, of being Jewish and what is going on in the world. There's always stuff, but I always come back to the fact of, well, at least I love myself.
This is something that I'm personally looking at. So I am asking you, almost asking for a friend, but you opened up about losing your mom in a really beautiful post. And you talk about really missing her and saying that your relationship was not perfect, but that she did her best, and that you actually blamed her for a lot of your problems.
Yeah.
I've noticed, I'm starting to do this daily show, and I notice that I talk about my mom a lot, and sometimes in a way that's maybe like hypercritical. I'm not sure she deserves it.
Yeah.
I don't talk about my dad that way. When did you start to gain a new perspective on your relationship with her?
After I got sober, I realized that my parents never said, "I love you" to me. And so I started ending every single phone call with the words, "I love you." It took them 10 years, I would say, to say it back. And I mean, I said every phone call. And so that helped it shift. And then when I was sober and was more proud of who I was, and my mother couldn't look at me and roll her eyes at, my pink hair or my tattoos, which she hated all of it, but I didn't care so much what she thought. And my sisters went to my mom and told her how they felt about some stuff she had done to them, which was really bad. And she said, "I'm too old to change." And I think that registered with me of okay, well, then I'm just gonna live my life and realize this is who you are. And then I read that quote somewhere that remember it's your mom's first time here too. And
Mm-hmm.
I realized like my mom got married at 19. Like she didn't even have a chance to know who she was. And she grew up in a time where you weren't allowed to really be a woman. And, there's a lot of good things that she obviously instilled in me because look at me. And
Oh, I
she
love
obviously
that.
gave me a lot of confidence. Or defying her gave me confidence, whatever it was. And so what really changed was when my mom had a heart attack, I guess we think it is. And I saw her on her deathbed and I realized like, oh, wow, it's over. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Like just like that, it's over. And now I can't have a relationship with her. And all the things that I felt just don't matter. Just don't matter because she's not here now. And it's just stupid to carry dumb. She didn't do anything bad to me. She didn't abuse me. And, it's just so dumb to carry this stuff because they're gone. And I know my mom knows everything that I'm doing now. And I know she's with me every day because the night that she died, I had flown back to LA and my sister called me and said, mom's gone. And I started crying. And when I hung up, I yelled for my dog. I said, Daisy, come here. And my Google radio clicked on it and said, I'm already here. And so I've known that she's been with me since then. And like, I know people that know my relationship with her would think it was crazy that I would get this upset, but it's your mom. Your mom's your mom. And I mourn the relationship that I wish we could have had. And I think people who have good relationships with their moms, where their moms are their best friends, are the luckiest girls in the world, because I would kill for that.
Thanks for sharing that.
I'm
I'm sorry to make you cry on a Sunday.
okay. It's okay. Crying is very healthy. I didn't cry till I did ayahuasca. So I literally did not cry until I was in my 50s.
Really?
No, never.
Even when you were drunk?
I don't think so.
Oh my God.
No, I was raised like you don't cry, you don't show emotion, you don't, and then you go to work, you don't cry. So yeah, I don't think I cried till I was 50, and I haven't stopped crying since.
So you say that social media in many ways is your therapy.
Yeah.
What do you think has been the most helpful lesson that you've learned by sharing so many of your stories?
Just to love my body a little bit more,
Yeah.
It's a daily struggle. I mean, I still wake up and think, oh, I got to lose like 5 pounds, like every day. And showing myself is part of my therapy,
You're still in your 60s, so we can't do a hindsight. So I want to know what you want and wish for Heidi in her 60s.
God, I hope I get to sell a show about women in their 50s and 60s because we deserve it. And, Real Housewives on Bravo shouldn't be the only place that we can see real women in their 50s and 60s living their life. And again, I want to change the way the world looks at women over 50. We're not Grace and Frankie yet. We're just starting our third act.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of things to do.
If we were to put a word on it, my word for you would be liberated. What would your word is joy?
For 60s?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, liberated is a good word. I feel liberated from society.
Okay.
And I think social media has done that for me because these young people are telling me, like I walk around Santa Barbara and people come up to me like crying, like, oh my God, you've changed my life. Like I get recognized all the time now. And it's never like, oh, hey, I follow you. It's, oh my God, you've changed my life. Oh my God, you make me happy to get old. Like it's just these affirmations that people don't say to each other. And so I think that's what's making everything so wonderful.
not to get too therapy here, but as you're saying that, I'm thinking like all the affirmations and love that you didn't get in your childhood are kind of coming around now, which is so interesting.
Yeah, 100%. I am nurtured on a daily basis by the people who follow me.
So cool. You don't
And I hope I'm nurturing them.
I mean, you are. You're nurturing me virtually, and I'm 30, so I know how people feel when they watch you and listen to your words. Okay, rapid fire. One thing that you used to take for granted that you don't anymore.
My mom.
If you could revisit one specific age for just one day, what would it be?
Probably somewhere in my 30s. Yeah. Somewhere in my 30s. Like, it would definitely be like somebody who broke my heart that I would want to go back and tell them that you're not gonna ruin me.
Love that.
I will survive.
What is the best gift that you've ever given?
Given? My time, my heart.
Yeah.
Honestly.
How about the best gift you've received?
Friendship, especially from the people that are putting me up right now. They also paid my rent during COVID for 2 years. They are the greatest, most wonderful friends in the world, Dan and Kevin, and they have just saved my life regularly.
What is a book that should be required reading? Something that you think everybody should read?
Well, I think the movie Origin should be required viewing for everybody, quite frankly, right now. But a book, I would say The Midnight Library. I don't know if you've read it, but it's a story of a woman, basically who doesn't want to be alive anymore, who has the opportunity to go to a library where all of the lives she could have led live, and she jumps in and out of those lives.
Ooh, I have to read that.
Carey Mulligan narrates it. So if you wanted to, it was a great audiobook, and she's going to make the movie. It's a spectacular book.
What is the smartest decision you've ever made, Heidi?
Moving to Santa Barbara.
I have one last question.
Okay.
Question everything card game, because we're virtual. You tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay. Wow, this is an interesting one. For you, after our conversation, do you fall in love easily? What is your love language?
I do fall in love easily. I would say what are the love languages?
I think it's
what would be the one equivalent to like being heard?
Ooh. Words of affirmation, maybe?
Yeah, probably. Which could also be love bombing.
Yeah, it depends. There's a thin line.
Women, it's something interesting about women in their 50s. They've spent their whole life not being listened to, and now they're really not being listened to. And I think that being heard is, you watch The Golden Bachelor and you watch these women just like, oh my God, nobody's looked at me like this. Nobody's spoken to me like this in years. And, we're all out here just trying to live authentic lives and be heard. And so if someone is having a conversation with me and they're actually listening to me and asking me questions about my life, like, I'm in. I fell madly in love with Eddie Cibrian when I worked with him on Baby Daddy. I mean, I was in love with him from a movie that he had made years earlier with Holly Hunter. And
he's so hot. How do you not fall in love with him?
The nicest man. And so is his wife, Leanne. But Eddie was on Baby Daddy. And I just remember him sitting with me and he was like, tell me about your life. It's so fascinating. Tell me everything. And I was like, how is Eddie Cibrian sitting here talking to me at 60 years old? Like, I love him so much. And that kind of person that just is interested in what you have to say, because most men are not interested in listening to women.
Are you open to a relationship in your 60s, do you think?
Yeah, but he'd have to like fall out of the ceiling.
Yeah, onto your bed.
Yeah. I'm not, there's no online dating happening, but I see people all the time and I'm like, whoa, they're hot. I'd go out with them.
That's
Uh,
cool.
yeah, but it never happens. But it could.
It could.
I never give up. Never say never, you know?
When did you stop dyeing your hair?
Like 3 years before the pandemic. And everyone told me I was crazy
Why?
because I'm going to look old.
And how
Like,
do you
I am
feel?
old. Who cares? Why is old a bad word? Like, old is a good word. I earned this. You know,
Yeah.
if you get here, it means you're living.
Yeah.
What's the opposite?
Okay, my last and final question for you is what is one thing you think I need to hear right now?
Live your life for you. Trust your gut, make decisions that you know will make you happy because happiness breeds more happiness. And the only thing that matters in life is being happy. If you can float in a sea of joy and happiness, you will be in the flow of what you're supposed to be doing in life. And which could be helping people or, you know, there's just no better place to be and just live your life unapologetically and without shame.
Thank you, Heidi.
I give you permission.
Thank you.